Hi everyone, Ryan Ratliff here from Mad River Outfitters, and thank you for joining us for this week's fly tying tips, where we're going to teach you everything you need to know about tying your own flies. Welcome back to Fly Tying Tips. My name's Ryan Ratliff. Make sure you join us every Wednesday about 3 p.m. Eastern, where we come out with a new video where we're going to help you learn what you need to know to tie your own flies. I'm always thinking about steelhead this time of year as the weather starts to change. We got low, clear conditions. I prefer to swing for steelhead, as I mentioned in the past. I'll do the bobber game, nymphing and such, but swinging is the preferred method of steelhead fishing for me. And so at this time of year, I start prepping some of my boxes. And since we've had low water the past few seasons, the streamers don't need to be real big. I'm going to show you 3 different methods or 3 different platforms that I use for tying steelhead flies. So it's going to be the same fly, very simple fly. You can change any color that you want on this fly, whatever fits your situation or your fishery the best. But this is a very simple fly that anybody can tie, and it swings very well, and you can use it even on a single hand rod. You don't have to have a switch or a spay rod or even any special lines. This fly would also work very well for trout too. So let's get started. The first one that I'm going to start out with, the first platform, is going to be the classic salmon iron. This is just a regular salmon hook. It's an up eye, black nickel. This is going to be your classic fly for where a lot of your salmon flies, a lot of your steelhead flies were tied on. And basically, we went over hooks. You can go back to one of the links on for the videos on the different types of hooks and the reasoning for different things. But this is the salmon iron. This is the TMC 7999. This happens to be a size 4. So first off, we're going to start out with just a regular cone. You can use a hot cone. This is just a large size in the gold. And I'm going to use this same cone on all the different platforms. So you don't need to have specialized size of cones or anything for different things. So I'm just going to slide this on, and it goes up over top of the return, that doubled over metal. So it goes up there. We're going to put it in the vise. And there'll probably be, as we tie the fly, maybe speed it up a little bit so you're not watching the same fly over and over again tied. But I'm also going to get just a little bit of flash, rabbit strip. This happens to be a barred one in white, but again, pick whatever color you want. Black is very popular, olive, all types of different things, and some schlappen. So 3 different materials for the fly, the hook, and then that cone. So let's go ahead and get thread started here, and just going to put thread down the hook. With the salmon iron, the tie-in point is roughly just about back, just past the tip of the barb. So it's right in there. So that's where you would start the fly. Just going to pull some of this flash out. Basically, I'm just going to dub the flash on the thread. You could use a loop here. You can do whatever method you want. But again, this is like a guide fly or something just to fill up the box real quick. I'm using the orange thread just so you can see what I'm doing. You would typically match the thread color to your body so it doesn't stick through the flash. Then just twist that on a little bit more. Wrap that up to there. All right, so roughly I have a cone length. Overwrap it just a touch. I'm at a cone length back from the head. Basically, this flash is just there just to give a little bit of color. Rabbit strip. They come in these like 3 pieces all together. There's a little piece of hide there. Just going to pop that apart. Then I like to give it a little stretch. That kind of gets it straight. Then I'm just going to take the front part of this, put it there. You could put a touch of super glue if you wanted to and lay it down. 2 loose wraps right on top of each other. Pull down, make sure that it's on top of the hook shank. It is. I'm going to wrap down over top of that. And then going to measure this out. I want it to be just about a hook shank and a half long. So 1.5 hook shank lengths. Separate it out. Clip her off. So just not real big, just perfect. Of course, you're going to have little bits of rabbit hair, rabbit fur everywhere. All right. Then I'm going to pick a schlappen feather here. Again, the schlappen feather is one that is going to be very, very webby, what we call webby, where the fibers are stuck together. I want one really nice and even like that. This one would work. It's a little bit more over stuck together, let's put it that way. But this one is the better choice here. All right. Just going to pluck that off. You can pull it off at the stem or whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm going to take some of this, pull that stem, pull those off the stem to expose the stem. All set. Looks real good. Going to lay that stem on my side of the hook and wrap up to the cone. Kind of crisscross wrap so it doesn't pull out. Then I'm going to take the feather. Sometimes you can swipe it down like this. I'm going to pull those fibers back. Hold them back as I wrap around. Then side by side wraps, just going forward. Tucking right up into that cone. Watch out that you don't pluck your finger on that hook shank, on the hook point when you come by. When you swipe those feathers back and then you get to here, hold up on the feather, a little bit of turn, a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of whatever it takes to get the thread through the fibers. Get 2 of them on there, then I feel pretty confident that it's on. I'm going to swipe everything back, a couple turns. Then if you wanted to, you could give 2 turns, 2 more turns over top of that feather piece. Take a little V in the scissor, push on that, pull it off of there. You're all set. Then you can do your whip finish with the whip finish tool, or you can do it by hand. Either way. For speed, I'll just go by hand. Trim that off. And there you have a very fast but very effective steelhead pattern. Got a little bit of sparkle underneath. You can see that there. A little bit of color here at the front, and it swipes back when it gets wet. And then just a little bit of tail there on that. So that is the salmon iron version of this fly. The next version that I want to show you is going to be one of my favorite ways to fish is with a tube fly system. Tube fly system, you need something to hold the tube. So this is the Aqua needle. This is a great choice. It's a tapered needle, does a great job. Then you will utilize, this is the simplest way to do it, 2 different sizes of tubing. You have 1 1/8 inch, or 1 1/8, sorry, millimeter, and 3mm tubing. The 3mm tubing is what's going to hold the hook eye. This is what you're going to tie the fly on, this 1.8mm. So they come in lots of different colors. This just happens to be purple. Doesn't really match the color scheme, but it's just what I grabbed. So kind of whatever you can dream up is a great choice. So if you've never messed with tubes, don't let it be overwhelming to you. It's simple. It's just a different way of tying. It's a way to utilize the ability to stack tubes together, nose to tail, to make two different flies. Basically, you're putting them together on there. If you don't know what tubes are, then basically your tippet gets threaded through the tube, you tie on the hook, and then you slide the eye up in there. So the tube will slide on the shank. So here's the 1.8mm. Here is the 3mm. 1.8mm is designed to fit inside that 3mm. I don't need a fly this big, so I'm going to cut it down. I'm going to cut it down to, let's say, about 1/3 of the length, maybe 1/4 of the length of this whole piece. Just regular scissors will cut that. If the end gets smashed together, you just put your scissor blade in there and kind of just, not too far, but just a little bit, and just spin. It kind of opens it up. And then I need even less amount with the 3mm. So roughly about this much. And I'll put the scissors in there just to kind of deburr it and kind of open up that end. All right. So at this point, if you wanted to, traditionally what we would do is we would heat this up with a lighter, shove that in there, and that would stay kind of mushroomed in there. But it just doesn't matter really. It's whatever you want to do. So this 3mm fits onto there, and then your 1.8 fits on here. And I slide that 3mm up over that 1.8. The 1.8 is right in the middle here. If you mushroom that in, you can kind of see it would be like a little bulb right there. I can see it on my end. You might not be able to see it on your end, but I can see where it's at. That's on one side of the joint. Just for reference, this is on the other side of the joint. So I like to put tie on both sides of that joint there, just so it kind of wedges it in. And then I'll tie right across it, just like that. So that kind of holds it there. You can wrap this thread all the way up, whatever you want to do, but I'm going to put that little bit of dubbing, the flash for the dubbing, just like we did on the previous fly. So probably speed this up just because you've already seen the fly. Okay, got the rabbit strip. Little bit of a stretch to straighten it out. Again, 2 loose wraps over the top. Tie it down. This one I'm going to prune a little bit. Or preen or whatever. I don't know what you would call that. Prune or preen. Prep. How about just that? All right, there we go. Do that spaced out up and back over top of that stem so it does not pull out. Trim off this extra piece of stem. Tube fly, no hook point right there, so I don't have to worry about sticking my finger. A lot quicker. Wrapping this forward here. Notice that I don't have the cone on yet, because on a tube fly, the cone gets put on afterwards at last. Whatever's at the head, you put that on right at the last bit. There's that. That fly is actually done. You could add some glue to it if you wanted to, but I'm going to actually whip finish here. If you're not good with the hand whip finish, that's where the big whip finish tool, the big 6-incher, would come into play, so you can get around that. All right, then the cone goes on right over top, right onto there it goes. Grab the whole tube, slide the whole thing off. There's the fly. Then I don't need this big long beak, so I'm going to trim it back just a little bit. And then if you wanted to make that cone so it stayed on permanently, you would use a lighter and just use the blue part of the flame up next to that, and it makes a little mushroom that locks this cone on. I like to leave it so I can pull the cone off and maybe put on a hot cone. So just kind of depends. Maybe I don't want a gold one, maybe I want a fluorescent orange or pink. I can switch the cones off. One of the versatile aspects of a tube. So same fly. All right, then the last method or platform of tying this fly is going to be using the Ultra Rig system. So you can get this kit, this Ultra Rig kit, just like this. We have a video. It's going to be found somewhere around here, a link to the Ultra Rig, or maybe down in the description, of setting up the Ultra Rig, utilizing the different forms. I even tie some flies on the Ultra Rig, a simple swinging fly. But this is a kit that Jerry French designed. This one happens to be, it's the round eye. They also make a returned eye. But this is a 26mm shank length. It's going to come with number 2 hooks. It's going to come with some junction tubing or hook holder tubing. And then it's going to come with some of the braid in there that you're going to attach the hook to. So you can utilize this rig just like this with all the different parts, just like in that video. Or you can utilize it as Edward and Jerry French originally designed the fly, what we call the trolley car system. And that's even quicker way of doing it, and that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to tie the pattern on that with the trolley car system. All right, so we're going to take the shank out of the Ultra Rig kit. We are going to put the cone on. And then if you have a vise that has smooth jaws in there, there's no really grooves in it, then you can use these shanks. You're going to put let's say maybe 1/8 of an inch or so in that vise jaw. Make sure your eye is upright so you got good orientation, and then squeeze that in there. Make sure it's very firm. Okay, so again, if you were doing the Ultra Rig, you would put the braid on there, and then you would put your hook onto that. I'm going to show you a little bit different way. All right, so I got that in there. This is the trolley car system, so I'm going to take just some, it could be any mono that you have. This happens to be some 20-pound amnesia. Just going to cut a little piece of it. And then I am going to fold it in half. This is maybe an 1.5 or 2 inches piece, 2-inch piece. I'm going to start my thread. Get it wrapped back close to the jaws there. All right, so you'll take this piece, doubled over piece, drop it on the hook shank, give it like 2 or 3 wraps. Pull it up on top of the hook here. And then I'm going to pull this end. All I want is just a tiny little loop Just a tiny little piece in the back. Very small. Now I'm going to over wrap. Again, I want these 2 pieces of this amnesia to be on top of the hook here, kind of correcting it with my finger. So every time I wrap this way, it wants to go around the hook shank, so I'm just pulling it back with my finger. Then crisscross wrap. No tension going to really be on this, so it's not that big a deal. Doesn't need to be too perfect. Trim off these ends. Don't need that. Then I'm going to take this little tiny loop and pull it up. I want it to be upright. And I'm going to wrap underneath of it there a couple wraps, and then wrap forward here, and wrap here. Wrap forward here, then pull up here and wrap back. Notice what's going on is as I'm wrapping underneath of it and then wrapping forward, slowly pulling that loop up. It's going to be in line with the eye of the hook. All right, so that's it. That's the basis of the trolley car system. All right, so now going to go super fast here. Same exact thing. Repeat the fly. Flash. Then rabbit strip again. Again, give it a little pull. Make sure it's tight and straight. Pick your length. Schloppen. Prep the feather. Crisscross wraps on the stem. Make sure it doesn't pull out. Pull the fibers back and wrap forward. All right, so this fly is done here. One thing, I ran out of feather, but I still have a little bit of play in this cone. Not that big a deal. I mean, it could rattle there. Some people might argue that. But if you don't like that, you can tie in another Schloppen feather and go from there. Or just add, you've seen me do this with the polar bugger, just add a little bit of dubbing, or this happens to just be flash that I'm using for dubbing. But I'm just going to take this and I'm going to wrap this around the thread, get it really, really tight, and I'm going to tuck this into that cone. Again, you saw this originally. I did this with the polar bugger just to tighten up the cones. The cones are like recessed, unlike a bead. So it's a little bit trickier to get things tight. But then you just pull this back, and I'll wrap this around here, but you might not even get to see it once I'm done. It's going to be tucked so much in there. Just maybe just a little bit of color, a little bit of flash right there, but that will tighten up the cone. Yeah, just a little collar, but now the cone's nice and tight. So that's one way to tighten that up. If you don't like that look of it being kind of long, then you would have just tied in another Schloppen feather and wrapped up a little bit more. So that is the shank. Tied on the shank. I'll pull everything aside. You can see there's an exposed piece of shank, and there's a little tiny loop there. That is what we're going to use for the trolley car. But we need something to hold the hook, and that's where the hook holder tubing comes into play. This happens to be clear in the kit. You can get any type of color that you want. They're all the same size, and you just want just enough to kind of hold the hook. So this is going to be roughly a little bit more than a ½ inch or so, because I can always trim it back down. And then I am going to slide this on this exposed shank. Boom, just like this. This fly is done at this point. Okay? It's not a tube. It's not really the ultra rig with the stinger loop. It's just kind of a combination of the two. So that is the trolley car system, trolley car platform. All right, so let me show you how the trolley car system works. I'm just going to use this amnesia here because it's nice and bright so you can see what's going on. Give it a little pull so it gets the memory out. So for the tube, I'll show you how, obviously the hook, you just rig it, you just tie right to it, right? The tube, you would slide the tippet that you're going to use right through the tube. This might be harder to do without my clicks. All right, there we go. the tippet comes out this end, you tie your hook on, you pull it tight, and your hook is right back in the back. You can turn the hook point down, turn it hook point up, however you want to do that. So I'm going to take this trolley car system, there's the eye of the shank, I'm going to put the tippet through the eye of the shank, and then the tippet parallels down the body of the fly. Okay, I'm going to pull the tail out of the way so you can see, pull the schlop and feather out of the way so you can see, and then I'm going to pull the junction or the hook holder tubing off, set it off to the side. The tippet now goes through this little tiny loop in the back. You can see it's sitting, this is the trolley car system, so it's through the eye and then through that little loop in the back. You basically just let the tippet sit right down the side of the fly. Just kind of pull all the materials back so you can kind of see, sits just like that. I would slide the hook holder tubing over top of the tippet, slide that back on top of the shank end, exposed shank. So now at this point, this is just like a tube. I would tie on the hook here, pull this where the hook eye is up inside that hook holder tubing, and you are all ready to go. So, reasoning for tying this way versus tying on a tube. The tube doesn't have the weight of the shank. So even though it has a cone on it, this tube is going to be lighter, and it's also going to trap some air inside there. Where this is all metal, it's going to sink a lot faster than a tube would. Also, the tube is larger diameter, so it means that it's not going to cut through the water as quickly. Both have its own place. If you got questions about when to do what or all that stuff, go in more depth with that, just give me a call at the shop. But yeah, the original Intruder was tied on this type of platform with Ed Ward and Jerry French and all those guys. So on the trolley car system. So 3 very simple ways to tie steelhead flies for swinging with a double hand rod or single hand rod. This would be a great trout fly also. Very simple. You can tie it in any color you want, all kinds of different color combinations. I just want you to be comfortable with trying new things and new platforms to tie your steelhead flies this season. So, as always, man, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Hit that like button, leave a comment, give me a call at the shop. We love to hear from you. And man, it's almost steelhead time. So we're getting excited here in the shop. All right, take care. See you next time.